I did stand up for 3 years, and then I moved back to Minneapolis and was kind of like figuring out what I should do next. And he came to town. I watched his act. He did a show at the place called the Comedy Cabaret, or Comedy Gallery. And I did something kind of instinctive. I just kind of decided to tell him the pictures I was getting while I was listening to him, the images that he was creating. And he said, you know what, I'm writing my first HBO special, and I want you to help me write it. So the next year, we spent about 6 weeks. He'd come to Minneapolis, or I'd go to LA, and we wrote his first HBO special. And he just had such a big influence on me. He's very positive, he works hard. He was a great influence for me, and so I was kind of questioning whether I should be in stand-up or comedy. A lot of comedians are negative, and I just didn't know if it was for me, but when I met him, I decided I'm interested, you know, and so I actually pitched him an idea for a science fiction movie starring him, and he said to me, I'll try to do an impression of him if I can. Joel, this is not a movie for me, this is a movie for you. And he said, you know, he kind of made me realize I was imposing what I wanted on him because he was famous. And it really got me thinking that maybe it's time that I think about a show for myself. So it really was, in a way, part of the origin of MST. So great question. I don't think I'm going to get to... Wait a minute. Look at the Tom Circle.
The helmet's really hard to wear, so I'm not going to wear it. I was wondering how you and Bill got started with Other Space.
Trace.
Oh, Trace, sorry.
Yeah, Trace. You know, that was... Thank you so much. You can sit down. Thanks. That was our friend Paul Feig. And Paul Feig is this really famous director now. As you know, he's directing the new Ghostbusters movie. And he created the show and got a chance to do it, and he just decided he wanted to put Trace and I in there. And if you notice, it's really interesting, but if you look at what I was wearing in the KTMA episodes, how many people know about KTMA? Yeah. KTMA was very important to this Mystery Science Theater story because that's where we did the 22 first shows. And it was kind of like a workshop where we figured out movie riffing. That's how, it's kind of part of our secret sauce and how we were able to start the show. You know, no one's ever done a movie riffing show. I didn't see someone else do it. I didn't like kind of get it from somewhere else. It's really its own thing. And KTMA was what allowed us to kind of figure out how to do this. And so it's very important. But anyway, if you look at those shows, what I'm wearing and the way my hair is, my character, Zalian Fletcher, looks just like that guy. Blue jumpsuit, long hair. And then, of course, Trace is a robot in it. So it's pretty cool. But I'm super proud of it. I mean, both Trace and I at the end of it looked at each other and said, wow, we're really lucky. This could have gone really bad. So we felt like we skated on that one. Yeah, come on up to the microphone if you want. I'm concerned I won't be able to hear you.
So speaking of Other Space, I thought it was fantastic. Are there any plans to...
It really is fantastic.
Wonderful, wonderful cast. Anyways, is there any plans to continue on with it?
Oh, great question. Thank you so much. I encourage you to check out Other Space. It's really funny. It turned out great. Both Trace and I are really proud of it, and I don't know what's going to happen. I get the feeling it's going to be kind of like Freaks and Geeks. Both Trace and I were in Freaks and Geeks too, and that really only ran one season. So I suspect it's going to be like that. I'll be really surprised. They kind of missed their window, I think, to pick it up again. So that's just my take on it. Oh, you're lucky you're in the front. I can hear you. And you got a loud voice. Why don't you move back then? Great question. This is one of those things where if I was a real showman, I would say, oh, yeah, it's nuts. How funny we are together. Ah! But it wasn't like that. we really just wrote it and did our best to perform it. So the funniness for us was wrung out of it by the time we got around to it. But if I was a showman, I go, oh, the fun. The crazy fun we had. You should have seen it. Okay. He just said he thought I should be funnier. He said if I could make it like 20% funnier, it'd be really great for him. He's the envoy for the Salt Lake Comic-Con. But anyway, so I hope that answers your question. But, you know, for us, you know, the moment, one of the secrets of Mystery Science Theater is that we created at one time and never edited. So when we were creating the show, coming up with the ideas, there was never anybody going, no, something else, We just produced and extruded ideas, and that kept this real flow going. And that's the secret of creativity. If you're in a room with someone, you're trying to come up with an idea, and they say no to you, do not create with those people. They don't get it. You create, let it sit there, and you come back later and you edit it. And that's the secret of the show. We created, and then all the ideas got taken away, and each person became like a segment producer and then produced their own like 8 minutes. And they had all the riffs, and they had the movie, and then they'd go ahead and line all that up. So that's kind of how it worked. Probably too much information. But.
I just want to know what joke on Mystery Science Theater 3000 you were most proud of writing and why.
Oh boy, I don't know, you know, we had a rule where we never really, like, there'd be people outside the writing room who would try to profile us and go, okay, who wrote that joke? And I just said, you know, just tell them it came out of the writing room. So once you said it, you kind of released, like, ownership of it. And there really wasn't that mood to it, so I don't really think I have that memory or that knowledge of it. I have some jokes that I think are great, you know, that really made me laugh. Like, I watched one, it was a Mike episode, and it was one about a head, like a head in a box that it was a black and white movie. Do you know which one I mean? Thing that wouldn't die? But it was really funny. I think it's a Servo line where he says, guy drops a head rolls into the corral, horse thinks it's an apple and eats it. So that was my favorite right now. Thanks.
Hey, Joel.
Hey, you're so formal. I appreciate that.
Mr. Joel, sir.
Yeah.
You know, I love Mystery Science Theater, and part of what I love about it are these kooky, old, obscure movies that you guys dig up. So I'm curious if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about how that worked. Like, what was the process of finding these movies that you could legally riff on without having problems?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. You have to go back, you know, how long this has been. The world is so different now. And basically the only way you'd see movies back then is on TV. And not even really cable TV. It'd be your local affiliate that would run these movies. So these distributors were very clever, where they'd combine like 12 movies you wanted to see, and then they'd package 12 movies that you didn't want to see, right? And we really confused them when we said, no, we want to license the 12 movies that nobody cares about. It's like going to a cocaine dealer and saying, no, we don't want the baby laxative you're cutting in the cocaine. We want the baby laxative you're putting in the cocaine. We don't want the cocaine. So they were very concerned about that and confused because they thought they were fooling everybody, right? The public couldn't tell the difference between a crappy movie and a great movie. So that's kind of the long story short is how we did it. And then HBO Downtown Productions would clear these movies. They'd send us a box of VHS tapes. TV's Frank would be the guy who screened them and would kind of pick out his favorites. And then we'd watch them, usually during lunch, and go, oh, that one looks good, that one, you know. We missed Manos, it kind of slipped through the cracks. But yeah, that's kind of the answer, yeah.
Awesome, that's really
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, hi, I was just wondering, with Other Space, like what was the on-set dynamic? Like, was it where you weren't like a primary character? Like, was how that worked a lot different than with MST3K, or how did you approach that?
Yeah, it was very different because I wasn't involved with the writing process at all. It was like the writers, we'd get the scripts and I'd look at it and go, okay, now I have to kind of put this forward and kind of do this without really understanding always where it came from. The really interesting thing is I think that they had a really open set and it allowed you to kind of, if there were a few lines I was uncomfortable doing, and I think that's because of Mystery Science Theater. I feel kind of obliged to watch out for certain lines and think, because I know it's my own problem, but when we used to do cinematic Titanic shows, people would come bringing their kids, and it was like a PG-13 show, and I always felt like so uptight, like, oh no, it's like you're gonna hear something that, you know, it's just my own issue. So even on my website, I talk about Other Space, and I go, oh, by the way, this is PG-13. I think it's really funny, but it's not for kids, because people would get confused. So sometimes I'd alter lines based on that. I didn't feel comfortable saying. But I started to understand why actors like to act. It's really fun. It's really kind of this crazy feeling. And the other interesting thing about Other Space is we didn't really know exactly what was happening until we saw it all cut together. And so that's why we all wanted to do a second season, because we felt like we did so good, and now knowing it, we felt like we could really nail it. So that's kind of a little behind the scenes on that.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah. Hey.
Hi. I was a collector of the fan tapes, and I'm wondering are there plans to release episode 0, the green slime episode?
No, you know, that's a great question. The green slime was one of those things where we ran out, the license ran out on KTMA before we could, you know, we did it as a pilot. So I think there's just we really just made a few minutes of it, and I felt like we had to explain, the big job one with the pilot was to get across this bizarre idea that seems so simple now of theater seats and little characters talking during the movie. And this just was so weird for people that that's really what that was for. And if you notice, all we did was go into the theater, sit down, and they run the movie, and there's just 2 riffs, really. I think I say, there's like an asteroid coming in, and they said, there's a planet about to collide with our planet, and I say, that's no planet, that's a battle star. Or, you know. And then the other one is, somebody says number 2, and I say, speaking of number 2, let's go. So that's just are the 2 riffs actually ever uttered, and they show kind of the span of how, you know, banal our jokes could be and how sophisticated our jokes could be.
It should be released as a bonus feature.
What's that?
It should be released as a bonus feature on a DVD.
Oh yeah, but you'd have to license the green slime. So that's the rub. And that's a studio movie, so that gets expensive. But wouldn't it be fun if you could?
Yeah.
That would be fun. I think it's out there somewhere, actually. You might have to just look around.
It's on
online.
YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Yeah. See, he knew all along. He's like a therapist for me. He's kind of drawing out all these things that I'm kind of getting to. Yeah.
Hello, Joel.
Hey.
How's it going?
Me? I'm good. You?
Pretty good. Okay,
Good.
so, I have a question. Like, it's just about, like, YouTube overall. Like, what do you think of people like the Nostalgia Critic and the Cinema Stuff doing the thing you're doing now? Like, do you feel like, oh, they're doing a bad job or doing an okay job?
Great question. There are so many people doing like movie riffing and media critique now. I'm great with it. There's some people that are really good at it, some people that I just don't like. I think the biggest rule for me is when someone's going to be a movie riffer is just don't be a nimbus. You know what I mean? That's like job one. And when they are, it's like I don't feel it's sustainable. Like, yeah, it's just kind of that sarcastic, mean, like, because here's the thing, when you're riffing on media, they can't defend themselves. it's just it's like frozen in time and you're kind of critiquing it. So it's kind of like to act like you're a jerk because you were in this thing is just not fair. And so that's where I kind of tune out, like, oh, what have I done? I gave birth to a legion of jerks, But on the other side, there's people that are really talented and really gracious. And the idea is you're a companion. Here's the secret, is with movie riffing, you're a companion. And people don't want to spend time with Nimbus. So it might be funny the first time, but at a certain point they go, eh. So that's my take on it.
Nice.
And I think I said Nimbus like 3 times already. So yeah, 4 now, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks so much, yeah. Hey, thanks for dressing up, man.
Yeah.
Right on.
Okay.
You look good in that jumpsuit.
Thanks. So I've heard a lot of the stories of filmmakers that didn't like your take on the movie, but are there any stories of filmmakers that actually, or anybody involved in a movie that you riffed that it's like, hey, I really like that. You actually made my movie better, or something like that?
That's a great question. Miles OKeefe, who was in the A-Tour movies.
Cave Dwellers!
Cave Dwellers. So bless you for that. Thank you. Cave Dwellers. What's that movie again with Archibald Jr. and... EGOT! EGOT, thank you. Okay, let's see. I'm just kidding. I would love to do that. Couldn't you all just go with me on these things, and when I forget stuff, you can yell at me? The best one is, that guy, A-Tour, Cave Dwellers, Miles OKeefe. And he was the first guy who got in touch with us, and he called us, and he was super great. I mean, he just laughed. And Miles OKeefe is like this bodybuilder, giant man, and he's just laughing, going, oh, I've waited so long for someone to do that with one of my movies. You guys got to come out and party with me. And we're like intimidated, like, what does that mean? We're just little bit scrawny Midwesterners, and you're Miles O'Keefe, you're a movie star. But anyway, that was it. That's kind of the best example of that.
Hey, of all of your inventions from the Invention Exchange, which one do you think would sell the best today?
It's funny. There's this one that is so crazy, but it was a treadmill that you walked on, but then it had wheels, so it was like walking, And then, what's funny is that somebody went and made that, but then people got really upset, like, are they paying you? Come on, what's going on? Are you going to get in the middle of that? Come on! And it was like, I'm going to go, once they make money on that, then I'll give them a call. But I don't think it's going to happen. Thanks. Yeah. Hey, there's Crow. Thanks for dressing up, man. It's great.
Thanks. So my question is about the puppets. They first started out, they looked a lot different than they do today. I wonder sort of the evolution of how they came to be and how they came to be where they are right now.
Yeah, also I got to mention, at this convention, I hope you know, Trace, Bill Corbett, TV's Frank, all going to be in the convention, so absolutely. Well, listen, the story of the robots is I made a lot of robots prior to Mystery Science Theater. I made a lot of, I've collaged these robots out of found objects, and I sold them in a store called, hey, wait a second. You all done? You're in front of must be like 400 people, right? You all done? Come here, you have to sit down here by me. What's that? What's that? Oh, okay. Listen, you know what? I can handle it. I do this all the time. It's like crazy. I'm so good at this. But anyway, to answer your question, I made all these robots prior. Probably like 40 or 50 I collaged out of found objects and sold them. So I kind of created this language, this way of rapid prototyping these robots. And so when I got to the idea, that's why the robots were in there. But also it goes back to, all of Mystery Science Theater goes to that picture of the silhouettes. The theater seats and a guy watching it. And if it was just 3 guys sitting there, how do you tell them apart? Who's talking? Like, it's kind of dull. So my first instinct was, well, I got to make them look different so you kind of can identify them. They have to be different shapes. And so that's kind of how I went back to the robot thing. And so from there, I made the robots. I really did pull an all-nighter. That was the last thing I made because I knew how to make them. I'd made so many before. So I had all the bric-a-brac. I'd get it from the Goodwill. And I collaged them. So it was Crow, Gypsy, and then another robot named Beeper that was a baby robot. Okay, so when we did the pilot, when we did Green Slime, there's a little robot there named Beeper, and Josh was doing Beeper. And at the end of that, when we finally looked at it, it was so clear that nobody liked Beeper. It just wasn't happening. So I took him home, popped off his head, put on the gumball machine. He became Servo. That's it. If you look at Servo from KTMA, it's the same body as Beeper's, head's different. So anyway, getting back to your question, the parts from KTMA are what we used for the show when we went to Comedy Central, okay? So if you look at Crow, it's all the same parts. I'm trying to think if anything added. Well, Trace did these. I mean, again, just so you understand Trace and how brilliant he is, he's really like an engineer. He thinks like an engineer. And he took Crow, took all the same parts, but made these great animations for the eyes. And I know a lot about mechanics for puppets, and he did some mechanics that I'd never seen used before that worked beautifully. Also, he did new arms for Crow, which he took a lamp, pieces from a lamp, and recreated his arms. I did Servo and Gypsy, and Gypsy, the original Gypsy was made out of a car seat, so I just got a different car seat and made Gypsy. Tom Servo is pretty much all the same parts. I think I swapped out the Money Lover's barrel was there for KTMA. I think I swapped off the hover skirt and made it more round, like I used a salad bowl, so that became the hover skirt. So he was more on like a traffic cone before. But everything else is really similar. I think I swapped out his arms so he had some movement. So that was from a Seymour Butts. Do you remember Seymour Butts, the little thing you'd hang in a window and supposedly moon people? So his arms were Seymour Butts' arms. His hands were doll hands. So I think the original Tom Servo hands were ventriloquist dummy, Juro ventriloquist dummies like the dolls. So again, I get kind of Asperger's when it comes time to talk about puppets. I go on and on. But anyway, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. And you are wearing a Crow outfit, you know.
Okay. You've touched on the creation of the pilot and moving back to Minnesota after LA. I'm so interested, it was so inventive at the time, and I remember seeing it when it was newish and thinking, so struck by it. Did you, as a creative individual, did you come to Minnesota feeling like you were compelled to, I have to move back here to start something if I want to build something from the ground up, or as opposed to having, other people perhaps offer me something and grinding it out? Or did you feel like Minnesota is where I want to grow something of my own? If that makes sense, I'm so interested in sort of the
That's a great question, Yeah, I spent 3 years in LA and I felt it was very inhospitable to my type of creativity. I didn't think I'd be able to. The concept of selling an idea to these jaded executives, especially one as weird as MST, I just didn't think that was possible. So going back to Minneapolis, I really quit performing and took a break and kind of waited. I didn't assume I was going to go back to show business. I just was worn out, and I just didn't feel like LA was the right place. And the other thing about LA is they get so many things wrong. They do a lot of things right, but really only 5% of the shows they make ever have a life beyond that. So there's a lot of things wrong. There's a culture there that doesn't really celebrate or encourage real creativity. And so I didn't want to do that. I just felt intimidated, and I didn't want to do it there. So going back to Minneapolis was the perfect thing for that. My first idea was to try to make a show that was inexpensive, because then I knew that I could bankroll it myself. That was really the first part of it. And this is after the Jerry Seinfeld thing, where I kind of thought, oh, maybe I should do this. And so my thinking was, I'm going to try to back into this because there's a couple of things from earlier. My thinking was I wanted to do a show that was inexpensive, because I knew if it was expensive, you had to convince jaded executives and wealthy people to kind of put money in, and I just didn't think I could do that. And so I said to myself, well, maybe it's a show that's kind of like the shows they made locally when I was growing up, which was kids' cartoon shows where there'd be a host, and where they'd show like public domain Fleischer movies, or monster movie shows where they'd show public domain monster movies. So I really thought, oh, that's when it kind of dawned on me. And my first idea was a show called You Are Here, which was based on Charlton Heston's movie, The Omega Man, okay? You know that scene in The Omega Man? Who's seen The Omega Man? Anybody? It's really cool. It's like one of the very early zombie movies. And he's kind of the last man on Earth. And in one of the opening scenes, he goes to a theater and runs a movie, and he's watching Woodstock, and he's just going, look at all the people. And it's from that moment that I thought, oh, I'm going to make a show like that. I'm going to make a show where a guy, it's a zombie apocalypse, he's held up in a TV station, and he's showing these movies hoping someone sees them. And that's where the kind of the theater seat thing kind of got to me. I had a robot companion named Rex. That was going to be the movie. And so then I thought to myself, now that's really good. This theater, superimposing the characters over is really strong. And so that was kind of the idea for maybe a little while, a few months. And then it dawned on me that the zombie apocalypse was a little too dire to put a comedy in. Now you could do it like Shaun of the Dead, but back then it didn't track, so then I transposed the Douglas Trumbull's Silent Running, which I always really liked, which was about a guy with 3 robot companions. So that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Hey.
You can probably tell that I'm not from around here.
I could tell by your shirt.
I only got into MST about 18 months ago because they don't really show it all the time in England, and I found it via YouTube, just like searching just for something to make me laugh, and I ended up basically watching all the episodes. Now, as like from a financial and creative point of view, how do you feel that basically all the episodes are available to stream on YouTube for free?
Oh, great question. I don't know how I feel about it because I don't feel it's sustainable. I think that idea that if you share everything and it's all free, you know, I think people misinterpret it. Early in our history, the first couple of seasons, you couldn't get Mystery Science Theater everywhere. It was only in certain states because cable was just starting to happen. And so we did a campaign called Keep Circulating the Tapes, which was kind of like based on, you know, we found out a lot of people were sending tapes to their friends and sending tapes to people in the Army and their friends and stuff. So it was our own kind of, I want my MTV. But I think people took that to mean, oh, you know, go for it, you know. Just even in today's age where you could download it, they still feel that you can, you know, it's there to be, you know, kind of copied and given away for free. So my impression now is, I mean, that worked in a really great way for us for a while, but it's not sustainable. It's not like the money's still coming in. You can tell that it's just like kind of drying up. So people, when they share it, it doesn't, whoever came up with that idea that this will work out if you give it out for free, you know, that feeling, or people just pirating it and using it, I'm not certain that's going to work. So we have to think about that. We have to kind of figure out what the new model is that's going to be fair for everybody. So it's a really interesting question, and I don't know how I feel about it. On one hand, you know, you're all here 25, 26 years later, and I think part of it is because people have access to the show. On the other hand, how do you do it so it's sustainable, so the people who work on it can, you know, it's one of, you know, Time Magazine and Entertainment Weekly consider it one of the top 100 TV shows of all time. So they can, yeah. So in some ways you should get paid for that. You should be able to get paid for it. So that's kind of my take on it. Yeah, thank you. Great question, by the way. And I don't know, and don't hate me if you pirate stuff, because I don't know how I feel about it, but we have to figure that out. Yeah.
I was just wondering if you've ever bumped into Jodan Baker on the streets.
No, I haven't. And you know, that's a great question, because I always thought that was a myth, you know, like Jodan Baker hates us. And there's a guy named Daniel Griffith who makes all the documentaries on the Mystery Science Theater DVDs. And he interviewed Jodan Baker, or he tried to, and Jodan Baker said, "No, not having it, not going to talk to you." And he goes, "Well, you know, he's a really soft-spoken guy, but you know, Mr. Baker, they just were really doing it in the spirit of fun." And they used my name. They didn't make fun of Mitchell. They made fun of Jodan Baker. Supposedly, that's where we crossed the line. We used his name. So yeah, it wouldn't work out.
So when did you first sort of realize just how popular the show had become, and what was it like when you first started getting invited to conventions?
Oh, great question. I've only really started doing it like the last 2 years, and it's been really fun. I mean, I love it. Mystery Science Theater is more famous now than it ever has been. And I think I noticed it once the show stopped. I think once there were a finite number of shows, everyone said, oh, okay, now we have to look at it as a thing. And so I noticed that from that point on, it got more and more famous. I think just because comedy nerds just started, and science fiction nerds, you know, I don't want to leave you out. But yeah, they all started to kind of say, you know, if you like comedy, you're going to like this. So I think that's my impression is it from about 15 years ago, it started to kind of change. Hello.
My name's Jody.
Hey.
I've been a fan since, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I've been a fan since I was 12, so it's been about 22 years now, so kind of dating myself. But my question was, a lot of the humor on it is very smart. And I remember even when I was a kid, like a lot of stuff I didn't know, like a lot of the references, and when I got older, I was laughing my butt off in class because I was finally getting the jokes. And my question is, like, was it anything that you guys were researching, or was it just stuff that you knew and everyone just brought stuff to the table when they were doing the jokes?
Oh, well, thank you. You know, I have to say, I just feel like, again, there's so much I know now about Mystery Science Theater that we didn't know while we were doing it. You know, now I have a lot of perspective, and a lot of it is just getting to do events like this where people have questions, doing, like, when we did Cinematic Titanic, I did hundreds of interviews, and over time, certain things kind of drop on you. So I think I have an answer for you. I think it was just part of the way people would talk back then. I think using a reference to cross-referencing something else while you were having a conversation was just a really fun way to talk. And so I just think that was kind of part of it. And again, because we didn't do this in Hollywood or New York, they would have stopped that. They would have said, no. This is, they're not going to get that. You can't do that. And again, that's one of those things that was able to happen because we were just unpoliced, and we just felt that would be super cool. Turns out it was waiting to happen. Turns out everybody wanted to hear that, and now it's just there. But again, it was because we were in the right place, and we were given this liberty, and we had all this space to fill, 800 riffs, and so it's really whatever made you laugh. And so that's all we were doing. We weren't pleasing anybody. We were just kind of amusing ourselves. So that kind of was part of it.
Because I remember my dad, he told me not to watch it anymore because he thought it was making me stupid. And I told him I'm actually learning a whole bunch of stuff that I wasn't learning in school. So thank you for teaching me.
Yeah, it's like Mozart. It makes you smarter when you watch it. Yeah, thank you.
Hi. So no pressure, but I've been waiting for 4 years to ask you this question. My favorite thing about MST3K, through all the genius that exists in universe, is the way it affects people. Like the way it steps out of the television and into your living room. And all these people who don't worship but cherish you. But obviously we can't know you personally, right? So I'm wondering, not as like a celebrity, but as a person, how do you feel being such an important member of so many families you'll never know?
Oh, bless you. Thank you for that. Thanks so much. Well, I just feel really grateful. I think that, it's one of those things like everybody, like there's a theory that everybody kind of finds their favorite movie when they're like 22 years old, maybe when they're 18 years old. And I think that's true when people find Mystery Science Theater. It's just there's that moment maybe when you're 12 or 13 years old where people find it and really spark to it. So I kind of feel like that's what happens. So, and people are used to interpreting, finding their own meaning in things. So I think that is, Mystery Science Theater kind of has that effect on people, allows you to do that. So I just feel really lucky that people feel that way, and I know that if it wasn't me or my show, it would be something like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, or Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So anyway, that's my answer. All right, thanks. All right, thanks for dressing up. There's Torgo. Uncomfortable, as you got the perfect look for it. Really uncomfortable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you've heard anything about Manos Returns, the planned sequel to Manos. And if you have
Yeah, I have. Who's the woman who plays the little girl, Jackie?
Jackie Neiman.
Jackie Neiman's writing a book. I'm writing the foreword to her book, and she asked me about that, and I don't know. Like, what do you think of when you think of that? Do you think they'll make it identical? Will it have all the graininess, and will it be done?
I hope so.
Shot? But what do you really think, though? Do you think they'll be capable of? Will they recreate it so it's identical, or will it look?
Depends on whether or not they can find that handheld camera that they were using in the beginning.
Yeah.
Most of the people are dead.
Yeah, they are, and that movie killed them. I don't know, I just think we're in this golden age where people are recreating old brands and doing it again. So they have a really good shot where someone could find a filter and kind of understand the way it was made. But I think, my theory, I have a theory about Manos that's different than any other movie we ever did. Number one, when we were riffing Manos, that was the first time I said to myself, holy cow, this is Poopies movie. Okay? But I'm the executive producer of the show. So I had to be very careful and say, should I mention that to the other writers, or would that be irresponsible? Because then that would give them license, like, oh, if he thinks it's Poopies, we don't have to do this one. So I didn't say anything. But I think there's something about Manos, and again, while we were doing it, all we knew was it was terrible. Like, if you notice, we have Frank coming out and apologizing. And we kind of stuck to the theme of the show. But again, this is that thing in history where Manos has come back. Usually we get our sauce on the movie. Manos got his sauce on us. And there's something about it, and here's my theory about it, okay? Mystery Science Theater works best when it's like you're going into a haunted house with 3 funny friends, okay? It's kind of like, because we're different than regular movies. Every movie you go to now is pre-sold to you. You know the highlights, you know what it's going to be like. Never happened with Mystery Science Theater. We did not billboard, we didn't preview and say, next week, the guys riff on Manos. You gotta check it out. It wasn't like that. So it's really like the unknown. And I think Manos has this feeling like the filmmaker is so incapable, yet he's trying to do something sinister, and it's chilling. It's like there's something truly creepy and scary. Do you agree? There's something about it. And he does do something really horrible at the end. He has this little girl who's going to be a bride. But he's so inept, you kind of go, oh, I don't know what I was worried about. But that's what I think, how I think Manos works, is there's this terror to it, because you go, the guy behind the camera is terrible, and he's capable of anything. So that's my take on it.
Do you have any plans to do any riffing of the sequel?
I don't think so, because I tend not to want to riff on movies that people deliberately make to be bad. I just think that's like, I'm not going to do that. You know, it's like, that's not my job. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, yeah. So is this the last one? How are we doing on time? You can talk now, by the way. 7 minutes? I think we could have 2 more.
Okay.
2 more if anybody's got one. But I just wanted to let you know the last person, it's got to be a killer question, because I'm going to wrap it all up in a bow. Bring this whole thing together and send you off into the world. Oh, also, Matt, where are you? Matt McGinnis, where are you, man? Stand up. Matt, my assistant, Matt McGinnis, right here. I wanted to invite you, since I have you all here, I'm going to be signing right after this. And I would like to invite you to come down because I'm not going to stay all night. I'm supposed to stay till 9. I'm kind of worn out from traveling, so I'm going to just stay for like as long as it takes. So I'd encourage you to come down right away if you want to get an autograph or a photo or a poster, just to create an incentive because you are my market. We're going to give you $5 off on a poster, 8x10, or a photo when you come down right away. But here is your coupon. You have to do the Carol Burnett thing like this, okay? That's the only way you'll get it. So let's bring it on home. Last 5 minutes. I will now thrill you with my answers. Go.
All right. It's a pleasure to meet you, by the way.
That can't be part of your question. Okay, you're just greasing us up. I know. Okay, bring it on. Come on. I'm ready.
So I was just wondering, how long did it take you guys to write the scripts for the movies? Because they're absolutely fantastic, and movies came out on a weekly basis on TV, right?
Well, we made them every 7 days. We made 22 movies a year, and that we had a very leisurely pace. We'd come into work at 10. We'd leave by about 4 or 5. We never pulled all-nighters. We never stayed past 6 o'clock at night. Just my belief was you have to have fun while you're doing it. Again, that's a different culture. That's Hollywood, okay? So that's part of the thinking. We wrote the Mystery Science Theaters in 2 sections. Like I said, the creation section, which was the first 3 days, and the editing session, which was probably another 2 or 3 days. So that's how we did it. And that's the secret to writing the way we did, is you can't edit and create at the same time. If you are with someone who is doing that, get away from them, because you shouldn't do that. I read a bunch of creativity books before, like a whack on the side of the head and stuff like that before we started. So I just had a few simple rules that kept us able to produce that much stuff. So really, it was a total of 5 days total. And then we'd shoot the last 2 days.
Cool. And I was wondering, how did they eat and breathe on the satellite?
Get out of here, you smart aleck. Come on, look at him. He should have gone last. Okay, let's see what you got. Come on. But I have high hopes for you. Come on, let's see.
Of all the movies that you couldn't do, which one sticks out in your mind that you really wish you could have?
You know, that's funny. I'm going to take you behind the curtain. If I was a showman, I'd go, let me think about that. How about Gone Girl? No, I don't know, but it wasn't like that, Is that the name of a movie? Did I get that right? Oh, I know. But ask me again.
All the movies that you wanted to do but maybe couldn't, which one would it be?
Fantastic Four. Good night. Yeah. See? I did it. If I wanted to BS you and just be a showman, that's what I'd do. But I'm so interested in people knowing the story of MST, I want to tell you. It wasn't like that. We didn't window shop for movies and then tell the lawyers, you're our errand boys, go find this movie, get the rights, and come back to us. It didn't work that way because basically the lawyer's time was more valuable than our time. So they found the movies based on our criteria and then did it. It's kind of like walking around your neighborhood, window shopping for houses you'd like to fix up, whether you owned them or not. It's like you look for HUD homes, you get that list, get a HUD home, then you fix it up. So that's kind of, it's different, and I think that's confusing for people, but it's really how we did it. You had to, it's so twitchy technically because you have to get the rights, so it's a little bit different. Okay, now, you're going to bring us home with the most stunning, eye-opening question.
How tall are you?
How tall? Good night. No one knows.
It's a mystery to be kept. No, I was wondering, you talked before about the negative vibe you can get in comedy sometimes. And it also can veer into the crass as well, comedy overall. And it's never gotten that way in your comedy, which I'm glad for. And I wonder if that's because it was a TV show, if that's just you, your writers, the people you pick to be around you in your creative process. Why is that? Is it hindering or is it a good thing?
It's a great question. It's really a good question. I feel really strongly about this. And I think that, oh, don't go away. No, I'm just kidding. I think that's a great question. It's such a good one to end on. I'll try to paint the picture of what it was like. Because cable was just starting to happen, this is 26 years ago, there was a lot of pent-up frustration because broadcast TV really would censor you. And so there were a lot of people that felt like it was a liberty to do something dirty on TV, like we're not, you know, it's like a First Amendment right to be able to have freedom of speech. And so I think that became a big thing. Like, for example, when I used to do stand-up at the Comedy Store, and Sam Kinison was there. We were friends. And he would do his act, and I'd just sit in the back of the room and go, this guy's awesome, but he'll never get on TV. But then cable happened, and he became a star. So this was in the ether, this was going on, and that became kind of a thing. It was just, there was a momentum there where people go, well, come on, you got to show, you got to be dirty now. I mean, this is about liberty. And I kind of felt like, personally, Lenny Bruce solved all of that. Lenny Bruce crossed that line. It was crossed, and he did everybody a huge favor. It wasn't my job. And it also wasn't my wheelhouse, because if you look at my stand-up, that's not part of it. It's not anything I was ever comfortable with. And I just think in general, we felt, it just wasn't an issue. It wasn't where we were at. And I'm super proud of that. I'm so glad that so many people I met watched Mystery Science Theater with their parents. They had experiences that they loved. And I'm super proud of that we were funny and people could all watch it together too. So again, thank you. I'll be down signing. I hope you come by. But thank you. That's the end of my brilliant presentation. So thanks so much.
Go Hodgson, everybody!
Interstellar Science Theater 3000. If you've seen Interstellar and you're a fan of Mystery Science Theater, there's a specific scene.
New con smell to it, you know? A lot of sweat emanating from rubber suits. Seeing a lot of men who are wearing tights just because they can wear tights in public.
Yeah, I got in trouble a lot for making fun of things in the class. I used to riff on the educational films. So,
did you really? You really did?
I absolutely did. So I come by my career honestly.